Though they don't do it as much anymore as they used to, at least not over here in the United States and North America, Konami used to release a video game at least once a year, if not every other year. Games such as Duel Academy, Duelist of the Roses, which is one of my personal favorites, even games like World Championship 2004, 2003, Sacred Cards, and so on and so forth were coming out at a pretty consistent rate, and they all included 3 promo cards. Most of the time these promos were either exclusive to the games or rarity upgrades for certain cards. In the case of Duelist of the Roses, I believe the first time we actually got the Magnet Warriors was in that game, but they were Prismatic Secret Rare and would go on later to get reprints in Structured X, Dark Beginning, and other sets, so on and so forth. These video games in general were always just really cool to me as a kid because I used to look forward to getting them, getting the cool promo cards inside, and then some of them were pretty fun. Well, some were a bit more standard. I definitely enjoyed Duelist of the Roses a ton. It had a unique approach. Games like Duel Academy were really solid for the Game Boy Advance and gave you just enough of a story and a little bit to kind of interact with the characters beyond sort of what we saw from World Championship 2004, which was probably the most stale in the series that we got. That being said, it's been a little while since we've gotten a new one here. We did get Legacy of the Duelist Link Evolution in 2018, but realistically, that game was more so just a remake, or I guess update, if you will, of the PS4 game Legacy of the Duelist that came out a few years prior to that, and it wasn't really all that exciting. Japan still gets them, with a new Rush Duel game slated to come out this summer with some new exclusive promos, but it's been a little while since we've gotten one, and honestly, I have no idea what the future holds as far as new video games for Yu-Gi-Oh! Here in the States. What I do know is that as the Yu-Gi-Oh! Collector's market has continued to go absolutely crazy, so have the promos from a lot of the old video games. They're completely hard to find now. Even if you do find the games, typically they don't have the promos in them anymore. And if you do find a sealed copy of one of those games with promos, they're usually extremely pricey because of the scarcity of these items. In a special Ion Market today, we're going to take a look at video game promos from a bunch of different games and take a look at what's basically skyrocketed to the point of not being any kind of a decent pickup or investment, and some that may be cheap enough where we can maybe talk about the possibility of scooping them up while they're still low, because there's really no reason that the amount of them available on market would increase. These are pretty limited items. For the sake of the video, I'm not going to talk too much about Dark Duel Stories promos like the original, the Blue Eyes, the Dark Magician, so on and so forth, Exodia, because those are already insanely expensive, and they have pretty much jumped the shark in terms of being something that anyone that wants to just pick up can go and pick up. So let's jump into Ion Market today and take a look at a special video game edition of the TCG market. Alright guys, so I went ahead and sorted this by basically the game. There's a lot of tabs open, which you guys can't see, but I didn't pick every video game card. There's still so many, and there's probably some that I missed, realistically, that, you know, someone may point out in the comments down below, but I tried to get a decent mix just to kind of take a look and go through and look at the prices. And so Sacred Cards is one of the games that really kind of comes up to me. It came out a little bit, not later in Yu-Gi-Oh, right, because it was like 2007 that it came out, I believe, but it was, you know, not one of the quote-unquote initial entry-level games, and honestly, I don't remember it being all that fun. They had been doing the World Championship game each year, which was more or less like a Yu-Gi-Oh simulator. You would just play against characters from the show, and, you know, we dive into the video game, you know, topic of Yu-Gi-Oh a little bit more in the future. But today, we're going to take a look at the cards. So, Sacred Cards has 3 promos, all of which are still relatively cheap. Perfect the Ultimate Great Moth is an iconic card, very limited printing, it's only been in a few things. The Prismatic Secret Rare looks awesome, and at near mint is around $10. Those quickly disappear and go up to about $12 to $15, so it's not like there's a ton available. I think it looks awesome, realistically, but the problem is you almost never find these in mint condition. Like, I've seen these going through bulk, I've seen these going through people's collection binders, and generally they're either bent or completely warped, or the edge is all messed up, and so finding these in good condition is not the easiest thing to do. Definitely don't think $10 is a terrible price to pick these up at, depending on whether or not that's something you're interested in, and just following the trend that you'll see with some of the other cards as we get a little bit deeper into the video. Ruryoku is another one from the Sacred Cards. This is a really cool card in terms of, like, well, sealed play, draft play, that kind of thing. This is an insanely powerful card. And not to mention just, like, neat artwork, and if you played any of the old video games, you remember how good this card could actually be in those. This one's pretty affordable at $5, and I think that really comes from the fact that it's maybe a little lesser known, but it's definitely still a neat promo that is cheap enough where you could pick this up and hold it long term with the hope that it would see a rise in value. The last one was Negate Attack. Now, this is a beautiful prismatic secret rare. I think it's the best art, like the best art representation of the card. This is almost $10. It looks like the market price is around 8 and change. Negate Attack is not a good card anymore for many reasons, but it's iconic in Yu-Gi-Oh! It was used in the anime a ton. It was used back in the day. And this is one that I could see going up. You know, you just kind of looking at the listings, there's a couple here with, you know, newer sellers around $9. They go to 11 and change to 12, and then they pretty much run out of quantities shortly. So, again, one of the things with the video game promos is that there's just not a ton of them in stock. So you have to kind of take into consideration that, like, it's not as though if they do disappear off the market, they're going to just suddenly all be replenished with people sitting on stacks of these waiting to relist them. It's just, it's been a lot of time, and it's tricky to find them. So Falsebound Kingdom is a really unique one, and when we get to the end of the video, we can talk about a couple of cards that are just insanely expensive, and some people may not even know existed. Falsebound Kingdom was weird because we in North America got one set of cards for it, and then in Europe and the European regions they got another set of cards for it. That are these here. Fairy King Truesdale was one of the European release ones. Despite that EN, it was a super rare in the European release of the game. It's about $100, and it's very, very pricey. There are not many listings at all because it wasn't even released in North America, and I don't know how many copies of this exists. This was probably about, I mean, realistically, back in the day, this was nowhere near this much because there wasn't this drive to collect them, and people didn't really care. So now when you combine that collector's drive with scarcity and the fact that it was a region exclusive card and not, you know, it was a Falsebound Kingdom, it was a Yu-Gi-Oh! GameCube game, it didn't have a massive following, and in my opinion isn't that great of a game, but that's not going to impact the price. I don't know how much of it was open. But if you also look at Kinetic Soldier, which was another one from the European release, this is about $200. Market price on this doesn't even exist. That's how scarce this is. It was only in the European regions, and so you can see $79, $80, but there's been no sold listings, and I don't know if that's because people aren't chasing after it, or if it just, a lot of people aren't even aware that it was a thing. We got, well, Cypher Soldier is the rename, but Kinetic Soldier we actually got in a separate video game, I believe. And I'm going to do a bit of on-the-fly market watch here because I don't remember exactly which one. We got it in World Championship 2004, and it's, you know, it's neat out of here if you can find it mint, but it's nowhere near the price of its counterpart. It's about $12. 15 if you're looking at, like, a verified seller. So just some food for thought on that. It's a really interesting card. These, like, the European exclusive ones are just going to be for high-end collectors or people that, like, really want to pick up all that stuff. It's just because there's such a small market for it. One I used to own a couple copies of, and one that was never very expensive until maybe the past couple of years, is Dark Sage. That was in the Dawn of Destiny Xbox game. It also came with Winged Dragon of Ra, which is just to the moon, if you will. This is about $75. Again, for a very long time was not super expensive. You could get this for like $15. Obviously, the Xbox game is, you know, finding that sealed. I don't even know. I haven't seen a sealed copy of that game in a while. There was an auction on eBay for it not too long ago, but I think, you know, more or less it's pretty scarce, but $75 on Dark Sage. Another one, Dimensional Prison. This card was very, as many of you know who may have played back in the day, was very expensive because it was actually used. I mean, the super rare version of this card was $35, $40 when it came out because this was the only place to get it, was in this video game. And even until it came out in Rael Omega Pack as an Ultra, it was still super, super hard to come by. And now you see near mint about $50. If people are playing Legacy formats, there were quite a few formats in which this card was used. This is one that you had an opportunity to get cheap because for a couple of years it was like maybe $5 to $10, but now it's if you want one, it's going to cost you about $50. And with cards like Sakuretsu Armor and other similar cards from similar Legacy formats picking up momentum, I don't see this going down. Another game, GX Duel Academy. That was a solidly fun game on Game Boy Advance. You've got the Winking Karibo. Obviously, we've seen Karibo cards have really solid collector's value over time. This is only $15. This feels like a good price, to be honest. I don't expect it to do anything immediately, but I do think it's one to keep in mind because it's a unique art. It's only got a couple of prints with that art, and it's just, again, a fan favorite card that you're just not going to find a lot of quantities of. Even quickly, the $10, well, $14 listings, that's a Korean one, go up relatively fast, and there's just not a ton available. So that's one I think could be a really solid long-term pickup. Necroshade is also from that game. I don't think this one has any kind of a crazy path to traction. I mean, it's a game promo, so it's worth at least a few bucks, but realistically, it's not a card that sees play, and it's not super hard to find. But then again, there are only 10 listings of it in near mint, so there's ups and downs to look at. Some of these cards that are this low may be a worthwhile pickup just on the off chance that it does see that growth that a lot of the video game promos do. Same thing here with Hero Ring from that same game. This is a $3 card. Like, you could definitely do worse than having it, and with the 16 listings available, you're taking a gamble on it for sure, but it's a low-level pickup for a card that's only been printed twice. It was in the video game, and then it was in Legendary Collection 2. Obviously, it's not very good at all, but it's a cool art. It was used in the show, and hero stuff typically ages well over time as well. So this does feel like it could be a really solid investment at that price. Jump into Duelist of the Roses, Gamma the Magnet Warrior. I love these Prismatic Magnet Warriors, by the way. Just another set of cards that's not widely available. You've got Duelist of the Roses, Retro Pack 2, Yugi Structure Deck, and Legendary Collection Yugi's World. So for a long time, you couldn't even really access this card. And the Speed Duel Battle City box down on the bottom as well. So now it's definitely accessible if you want it, but the Secret Rare version is about $6.99 plus $12 a piece. There's a decent quantity of these in stock. I think Duelist of the Roses was pretty widely accessible for a while. Beta, I know, is at one point was a bit higher because it was actually seeing play in Adamancipator with Unexpected Die, but it has settled, so it's about $10, give or take. Another one with 18 listings, comparatively to some of the older, out of the older games and the Game Boy games. It's, you could do worse on that investment. And same with Alpha, it's about $8, not terrible. The Magnet Warrior set is one that obviously will have a lot of growth and age well over time simply because it's Magnet Warriors. They're just kind of iconic. And the one thing about these that are interesting too, I don't know how well Duelist of the Roses actually sold. I liked the game a ton, but it wasn't as hot of a commodity as a lot of the Game Boy games that you would get. You could play on the go. And I just don't think sales-wise it was the same type of impact that a lot of the Game Boy games had. And even Tag Force, which was a really solid selling series for the PSP, and Vita, I think, in Japan, because I think they still made it for a while. Moving to Falsebound Kingdom for us, our promos have aged extremely well from this. We have Zoa, which is about $15. This used to be a couple bucks. Metal Zoa, which is just a beautiful prismatic secret rare, right around $14, $15. 26 listings, so this is pretty solid quantities of near mints. I don't think it's going to go anywhere anytime soon, but you will notice not a lot of people have any more than one copy. Maybe a couple people, but generally speaking, you're not seeing these in large quantities, which is why you don't really see buyouts on these video game promos a ton. It's just because it's not there. There's not that there's not a market for it, there's just not really a stock for it. One of the most bizarre ones is Warm Worm from Tag Force 4. $20 is the cheapest. There's some for $25, and then the rest go up to $30 relatively quickly. I did a quick check on eBay, and these actually sell for like $25, $30 over there as well. I don't know why. I'm guessing because this is its only print, and it was in a game that was like very limited, obviously, being a PSP game. But yeah, I mean, it's just a mill card that I don't think has ever seen any type of real competitive play, and yet has an insane market value. So if you have this and maybe didn't realize what you had, I've definitely seen this card trending upwards pretty significantly. Rechef of Destruction, another one of those Game Boy games that was just fine. I think it came out after the World Championship Series, but it just never really... I've played all of them, I just wasn't a huge fan of this. $16.98, so $17 for near mint on the Dark Magician Knight. That really does feel like a good price, given the fact that it is Dark Magician Knight, given the fact that it is a really nice prismatic. This, again, just if the video game promos continue the trend that they're going on currently, this definitely feels like one that will go solid. Knight's title is going to go right along with them. You'd probably want to have the pair. This is pretty easy to find, I think, but it's not easy to find mint. To find this in good shape is really, really tough. I've seen it in bulk, but generally it's dented, it's crimped, it's messed up on the edges. This card feels like it's really tough to find because, honestly, it's one of those cards that like nobody cared about for the longest time. So to find them preserved and in good condition is kind of tricky. We've got Capsule Monster Coliseum, a nightmare of a game, if you ask me. On PS2, people liked it, wasn't a fan. Abyss Soldier, this is obviously a card that goes back to you know, formats with Fishborg, formats before that. I mean, generally speaking, this card was just really powerful at the time in the game that it came out. This is $20. It's joined by Tiva from Capsule Monster Coliseum, which is like $2 or $3, I guess, if you want to factor in shipping. This is also just like a weird card that's like restricts your opponent from attacking on the next turn. So this has no, you know, competitive use ever for historical formats, but it is its only printing, and it is a bit of a unique art style, so that may be something that it has going for it. At $2.70, I mean, again, you really could do worse with that investment. And then Inferno Hammer, this is a weird card. It's old, and it has no other prints, so this is all he was ever in, but he's very cheap. He's like $1. But there's only 8 listings of him at Near Mint, so I don't know, food for thought there. Maybe you grab a couple of them if you're interested, because there was not much of a Near Mint stock on this. Cool card, would definitely be a nice compliment to like the set if you had all 3, but I don't think he's going to command any crazy prices on his own, at least not for a while. Not everything can, obviously. Salamandra from our Dark Duel Stories. This is one of the DDS cards we got in the re-release or whatever, when they stopped putting the Dark Magician, Blue Eyes, so on and so forth promos in there. This has aged pretty well too, up to $13. I think, you know, some people may still buy DDS, not even realizing that they're getting, you know, I saw somebody who bought a sealed DDS, and it turned out that it had this in it, and the original promos versus the ones that were advertised on the back. That would be really frustrating, obviously, because you're paying insane amounts of money to get those DDS promos from the original. Dark Bribe from Tag Force 2, $15. Used to be a really, really solid card. Definitely saw a lot of play. And generally speaking, for foil variants, has done well. It's got a Dark Legends print as well. It is pretty pricey. Not many listings in stock at all, and they quickly go up. So just something to look at there. Tag Force promos, Mad Reloaders, $3. He's not terrible. I thought I had him earlier, but I didn't. It's just not a good card, but it's a cool collector's piece. I wouldn't be in a rush on that. Microcoder's the most recent one we got here. That was accompanied by Cynet Codec, which apparently has no picture. And both of these are pretty solid long-term. I think Microcoder, you know, once we get Heat Soul, will be really viable. And its only other print was Intune Chaos. I think people will want to go for the Ultra because it's a game promo, but that's going to depend on your preference. Cynet Codec is a decent field spell. It was also Intune Chaos as a rare, but the Super is going to be, or Ultra, I'm not sure. It doesn't really tell me. I think this is a Super, though. Is going to be a better long-term play. And finally, looking at some of the 5D's Wheelie Breakers promos, which was a Wii game, and I think it was one that like sort of worked in the Wii motion controls. You would like race, and then you'd somehow play. I don't know exactly how it worked, to be honest. But $20 for Supersonic Skull Flame, $25 for Burning Skullhead, which is a zombie, and $15 for Skull Flame. These are really unique promos that have no other prints and are old, and it just was from a Wii game for Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, there's a lot of factors that make these what they are. But again, I mean, they're very low in quantity, and it's hard to tell whether or not they have any real growth opportunity. I'm just pointing out the stuff that's low, stuff that I've looked at myself as the video game market for Yu-Gi-Oh! Continues to just, you know, increase over time. And then, of course, yeah, I had to end it on this. Some people don't even know these existed. Sinister Serpent, this is a Spanish card. It was only printed in Spanish for Falsebound Kingdom. This card is, I mean, $15,000 may not be the right price, but this card is a multi-$1,000 card. I've seen confirmed sold listings of like $4K, I think. It's probably more than that at this point. It was only released in Spain in that game, and there were not a lot of quantities of it. There are no listings for Near Mint, and there's only one listing for Light Play. This, I mean, this is more so just to say, hey, this is a neat card that exists. You know, high rarity GOAT format players and stuff will chase this down, but I don't even know how many are really in circulation. And then Harpy's Feather Duster, this was also in that same Spanish one. Another really pricey card, no Near Mint copies available, $3,400 for Light Play. It's just, it's a incredibly scarce card that is, well, I mean, obviously iconic and still legal, although I would never, like, play this in my deck because the amount of damage you risk doing to a card that's worth that much is not worth it to me personally. But you can get a damaged one for $300 if you just want to have one, but I have no idea how damaged it would be. But again, this is just a card that like you'll probably never see in your lifetime unless you like go out of your way to buy one, because it's not going to pop up in people's collections. And even if it did, I would imagine it wouldn't be one they would just take out with them to events frequently, given the value that you're dealing with there. So there was another promo in the Spanish version of Falsebound Kingdom as well. I don't know what it was because it doesn't show up here. So I truly have no idea what it was, but I know the Harpy Southern and the Serpent are both crazy value. So if you somehow imported that, or if you lived in Spain and you own this now, or you still have it, you could be sitting on a very decent sized fortune for one thing or another. So yeah, just wanted to do a little bit of a different take on the Ion market today, talk about some of the video game promos. Let me know if you guys think there's some I missed. What do you guys think of some of the video games? I've been thinking about doing a video game series at some point, talking about some of the Yu-Gi-Oh games as well. So that is on the horizon as a possibility. But we'll get back to normal market watch tomorrow and take a look at the state of the market for meta stuff with Lightning Overdrive and everything on the way. That being said, though, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.